in Christ that I have a lot of confidence in, and that's Marty Raven. Someone representing the Lord, even a missionary or a lot of different roles. But when we accept those calls on our lives, we agree first and foremost to be obedient to God, to walk where He says go, to go where He says go, to say what He gives us, the messages He gives us, and to be obedient to Him. So Jonah was not faithful to his call in reality because he had the wrong attitude. He had the wrong attitude, and I titled this message, the message today, The Cure for Stinking Thinking. The Cure for Stinking Thinking, because throughout this passage, throughout this book, you can see where Jonah had some really stinking thinking. And I'm not going to ask you to preach a couple of the messages on that. Back up to chapter 3 and verse 10. This was after the king of Nineveh had pronounced a fast and had asked the people to repent and had repented himself. And in verse 10 it said, God saw their actions. When people repent, God sees their actions. When you repent, full, not surface stuff, not verbal, just saying the right thing or trying to appease their actions, that they had turned from their evil ways. So God relented from the disaster He had threatened them with, and He did not do it. Now, that should be great news for Nineveh, right? And it is. It was great news for Nineveh. But shouldn't it be great news to everybody? People were wicked. They were performing wicked acts. They were performing acts of hatred toward their enemies. They were known for being brutal and known for being doing things that are very ungodly. And for anyone around to know about these people and what they were doing when they repented, it should have been great news for everybody. But it wasn't great news for the prophet of God. Why? Well, we'll talk about that in just a little bit, but this is Jonah's response. Jonah was greatly displeased and became furious. Now in verse 2, he prayed to the Lord. Listen to this prayer. It says a lot about the heart of the prophet of God. He prayed to the Lord. Actions. He has a way of exposing us completely. He has a way of exposing us, and we don't like it. But we're not going to deal with it until He exposes us. The very things, think about this, the very things that, those very items, those things that He listed that are so great about God, is the very things that exposed Jonah's wrong attitudes. He said, Lord, I know, and he's confessing. Have you ever heard somebody in its shade to see what would happen to the city. He's hoping it's going to be destroyed, but he knows how good God is. Then the Lord appointed a plant, and it grew up to provide a shade over Jonah's head to ease his discomfort. He was in a place really hot, and the sun was beaming down. Jonah was greatly pleased with the plant. Now notice here that it doesn't say that Jonah was very grateful to God for that plant that God gave him that shaded him from the sun, that provided some comfort for him. It doesn't say that Jonah was grateful to God. It says in my text, Jonah was greatly pleased with the plant. Can you be grateful for something grateful for something or love something, an object or even a person, without being grateful to God? Specifically sent that to Jonah to shade him from the sun. It was God's provision to protect him from the elements. And he was grateful for that, but he was not grateful to God. There is a difference. So, he was greatly pleased with the plant. When dawn came the next day, God appointed a worm that attacked the plant, and it withered. Oh, now we're going to see a test. Now we're seeing a test. Are you grateful for the plant? You grateful for what's going on? You're comfortable? And they don't die, and now his little shade tree fades away. Or his little plant that is protecting him, it goes away. And he's upset. Wow. As the sun was rising, God appointed a scorching, that word is important, scorching east wind. The sun beat down so much on Jonah's head that he almost thrown up on the shore from the fish, remember, and went on and preached God's message, but now he needs to repent again. He needs to repent, but he doesn't. The second thing I want you to see here, and it's a question actually. If you're taking notes again, the question is, do I love comfort more than I love souls? Do I love comfort more than souls? That's a question I think every believer needs to ask. Because I'm going to confess to you today, there's many days that I love my comfort more than I love souls. If that wasn't the case, I'd be doing more for His kingdom than what I do. I'd be getting out of the recliner more. That you've held on to something, you won't let go of it. It becomes bitterness in your heart. Bitterness comes out in a lot of different ways. Here we see bitterness coming out of Jonah. To sit on a hillside and to watch, to get comfortable, to try to watch the show because you want to see people destroyed. That's bitterness. It's so against the character of God. And the very man, Jonah, who preached a message, and he should be rejoicing. Could you imagine a man come and preach a revival message and revival breaks out? People start repenting. People start praying. People getting right with God. Jonah couldn't even see that. He didn't accept that. He didn't receive that. He couldn't even see that. He's focused on his own comfort and focused on a plant. Can you imagine? Jonah, in verse 6, it says that he was greatly pleased with the plant. But he was so content that he didn't All he wanted to see was Nineveh's destruction. Let's go on to verse 10. So the Lord said, this is what's happening here in a lot of ways. That plant God gave, and then He took it away. Why did He do that? He wasn't just playing around with His prophet. He was exposing him. He was exposing his wrong heart. He was exposing the bitterness that was in Jonah's heart. And He's confronting Jonah now. He's telling him, you know, Jonah, you didn't grow this plant. You didn't work for it. You didn't till the ground. You didn't plant the seed. I gave it to you. And you're more upset over a plant than you are thousands of people. Now, this part of this passage has been interpreted in a lot of different ways. And I'm not, I really, I know what I think it's saying here, and I'm going to share with you just what I feel like He's really saying here. But there are some do you want them to go back to the way they were doing? They need nurturing. They need teaching. They need help. Jonah was showing more concern over a plant than even the animals. That would suffer if God brought judgment to Nineveh. Now, in our culture today, we have more problems, I think, with people loving animals more than they do people. You know, I don't say think. I know that's happening. You do too. And I'm not going on a tangent about that, but you know, there's some people that love animals more than souls of people, and that's wrong. That's sin against God. It's sin against His creation. Nation and the way He viewed the people, you could apply it that way. He let politics become more important than people. How much today we've become so divided as a nation. We've become so divided in our churches. We've become so divided in our communities. We've allowed many of us, no matter what your politics are, many of us have become to that point where we've allowed politics and viewpoints to become more important than souls. It divides us. We could use